So to start this session, our session today is about law enforcement issues and concerns around drug users and how harm reduction and law enforcement can work best together to solve issues that we're all dealing with as one. So to start the session today, we're all going to go around to say who we are and why we're concerned about this issue. My name is Robert Childs. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition, and I've been a law enforcement trainer for 10 years.
My name is Sam Knisley. I'm a former police detective for the North Carolina Special Police Unit. I focused on financial crime and patrol investigations. I was involved with new recruit training as far as field training operations, and also assisted with tactical training for the Raleigh Police Department. And I am now a student of criminal justice at Campbell University.
My name is Jennifer Earls. I am a former Chicago police officer for the past 8 years in Chicago, Illinois. When I was there, I did a lot of patrol. I worked for many years on the gang team there, and dealt with drug users and gang crimes for many years, and retired 2 years ago, and I've been in nursing school at Duke University ever since.
My name is Ronald Martin. I'm a retired New York City Police Department sergeant. My last tenure unit that I work in while I was in New York City was Organized Crime Control Bureau, Narcotics Division. Currently, right now, I'm just working with the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition.
Excellent. So our first question for our panel today is, what are some of the dangers of handling drug paraphernalia?
I think that when you are searching for drug paraphernalia or any type of material on a suspect, you don't know what it is that you're going to find. And I think that's probably the first risk that you have to deal with when you start that type of investigation. You're not aware of what's in their pockets, what's in their purses, and it's the unknown that's the biggest risk, in my opinion.
I would definitely echo that. You can be exposed to a stick or a stab or contamination just by handling that kind of paraphernalia, and it could be anything. It could be a pusher stick, it could be mesh, it could be a broken pipe, it could be a metal pipe. It could be a spoon, it could be something someone forgot about. And often I found in my job there would be moments where I'd have to preserve that as evidence for some other crime. And so not only do I have to remove it from the person, but then I might have to preserve it, so I'm going to have to hold on to it in some way. And so I created ways over the years to find things I could put it in, or to put it on my person to hold on to it for later. So yeah, I think the unknown is definitely the big mystery there.
And along with that mystery would just be the fear component itself. The fear component of just not knowing what can happen, whether you're going to be exposed to HIV, whether you're going to be exposed to hepatitis C, where there is a high possibility whereby if you were to receive a needle prick or to break skin at some point in time, something like this could happen. I think the number one priority as you're moving forward as a law enforcement official is always being concerned about your safety regarding things that are a little bit more imminent, which would be weapons and knives, guns, and the like. So therefore, things like glass crack pipes and syringes may be overlooked initially, thereby just making the mystery a little bit more unknown, because you're not initially going in looking for that one particular thing, and you're looking for something else, and then something incidentally happens, which causes a problem. There's certainly
You have to prioritize what you're looking for, and you're right. Firearms and knives are the number one thing that you're looking for, and there's only so much stuff that you can anticipate. And you're right, needles might fall into the background of my mind when I'm searching a suspect, but it's no less of a threat. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you did bring up syringes, because syringe needle sticks is one of the things we're most worried about. There's been research done that in states where syringes are criminalized, that 1 out of 3 officers normally will get a needle stick at some point, and 28% will get multiple sticks. And so I wanted the panel to discuss what are some of the specific dangers of handling syringes that you have encountered while doing your work.
When I've come across syringes, the first question that I would have for the suspect is what's it for? And I have legal concerns with asking that question. I don't know if it's for drugs or if it's for a medical condition. There might be some kind of HIPAA violation there, and gaining that kind of information is paramount to my safety as an officer, because I need to know what I'm dealing with.
I think one of the big problems with syringes is usually if there's one, there's many. And so you might be preoccupied with finding the first one, being concerned what's inside it, trying to determine if there's blood in it, if there's residue in it, what risk you're immediately exposed to, and then then having sometimes that moment of I found something with a person that you're going through or patting down, they realize you found it, then a whole other level of danger might have come into it, and you might have to, the I don't know, sort of the tenor of the moment gets kind of increased, and so then you might have a different problem in your hands. Now you might have to restrain them, or they might be taking off on you or something, and so finding something like syringe paraphernalia, I found that can be really a dangerous moment. And then there may be several more of them. And a needle stick it's not just scary, it's also a really dangerous wound because they tend to be deep and they penetrate, and it's very hard to clean something like that out, especially on the street in one of those moments where you've got all of this kind of craziness going on with a person that has now become a suspect, or you're patting down for your own safety or safety of your partners, and now this other level of sort of what's the best word? Like this new level of investigation has been created because of this syringe, and like you said, you don't know if it's medical, you don't know if it's a legal issue, you don't know if there's drugs involved, so it can quickly become dangerous.
Well, the most, and I concur with what you're saying, is especially the part where typically where you find one, you will more than likely find numerous ones that come behind it, that's going to follow. The most obvious dangers is just the fact that if you are stuck by a needle, you're going to be subjected to just once again the fear, the thought, the medical process, the things you have to go through is a matter of just making sure that you're going to be okay. Even coming in contact with the syringe itself can leave you open to things like hepatitis C, if I'm not mistaken. I would think, though, as far as the articulation goes, as far as asking the question, I think it becomes mute and secondary at that point. I think the question needs to be asked. I think the number one thing that any law enforcement official can do is really just be fully aware of how the best way in which they can articulate a situation to do what's going to be the safest thing they can possibly do for themselves. So at that particular moment there, regardless of whether it's a syringe for a diabetic or if it's a drug user that's using this particular syringe, questions need to be asked. Do you have anything in your person that can cause me harm, that could break skin, that can cut me, that can, and you're asking about everything from glass to any metals, to any razors, to any knives. The question needs to be articulated. And since I did bring up the issue about weapons before, you're also at a point in your investigation when you're actually doing this search, when you're looking for those multiple needles, because they could be hidden anywhere on this person, all right, you need to start to slow the process down. The process needs to be really, really, really slow. The most dangerous part about it is just speeding through the process and not actually conducting a thorough search that actually is going to be the safest search that you can conduct. So as you start to slow the process down, you start to eliminate some of the dangers to yourself.
Excellent.
I agree. I think that in North Carolina, we have what's called subject control arrest technique training, which teaches you how to conduct searches. And there are refresher courses that are offered to different officers. It depends on the department. Some departments require you to go through a refresher every 5 years. And new protocols for searches and new training techniques are coming out every single year. Mm-hmm. And without that training, and without being aware of the new types of drugs and new types of pipes that could be used, if you're not aware of it as an officer, it leaves you liable to get hurt. And I think that slowing it down, like you said, doing a proper search is something that needs continuous refreshers. And training comes into play there. And I think that that's what you should do. I think that's what all police departments should put that into their standard operation procedures.
Excellent. Yeah. And so moving on from syringes, we're going to talk about crack pipes. And in North Carolina, we know about 2% of the population here utilizes crack. And so we do see a lot of crack pipes when we are out in the field. And what we specifically worry about are crack pipes that are being used at a high frequency, because they tend to have been dropped and tend to have a lot of sharp edges. So I was wondering, can you relay from your experience anybody you know who got accidentally punctured by a crack pipe, or what are some of the dangers you saw associated with handling crack pipes while you're on the job?
I think it's similar to what we said before, that a lot of times if you come on the scene, the pipe, if it's in someone's hand, it's on the ground, then it gets broken. You can hear it when it hits the ground. So now you're recovering that newly broken piece of glass, or like you said, if it's been used, it's in someone's back pocket, it's in somewhere and you're sticking your hand in there. It's a dangerous moment to try to retrieve it. There's a way you can feel the outside of someone's clothing, and you get familiar with what those different pieces of paraphernalia can feel like, then you can ask them about it. There's a lot of ways that I've found over the years to have a conversation at the beginning of that moment where, and you mentioned it perfectly, like, is there anything on you that can hurt me? Is there anything that's going to stick me? A toothpick, your tweezers, were you doing your fingernails earlier? Like, especially with women, they tend to carry a lot of, dual purpose items. A pair of tweezers you can smoke with, a pair of tweezers you can clean your pipe with, you can also, do your makeup with or something like that. So the crack pipes I've found, metal ones, plastic ones, glass ones, car antennas that were bent off, basically anything that you can put a rock in and maybe a filter and smoke out of. And they're all dangerous and sharp, especially if they've been passed around a lot. There's, each person that uses it is going to contribute something to the flora on the outside of that pipe. So between being well used and being sharp or broken, there's a lot of danger on that little piece of pipe. So you just have to be really careful with it.
Yeah, I think Jen pointed out all of the dangers. I think the dangers are relatively clear cut. I think there needs to be a prevailing attitude about what is dangerous, to actually proceed as though you need to proceed with this level of caution. Speaking on my experience, I've witnessed law enforcement agents that can be, and I'm careful to use the word reckless, but I'm going to once again just reduce this back to speed and slowing down. They tend to be quick. And the process of being quick means that you're being negligent about some of the things you're doing. So the overall notion of going into someone's pocket at that moment is just glass. Now, it's not because of a lack of education, because there is information out showing that just the contact with the pipe itself can, one way or another, can potentially lead to a problem. But with that, you'll still see guys without a latex glove on will probably touch the glass or move the glass. I've seen glass pipes that have been thrown in and just broken and disposed of, or by whatever means. So I'm really going to probably harp in this whole notion of the fact that even though the information is out there in training, it's a matter of what officers are going to do with that particular training. How are they going to actually perform when they're in a field setting? Are they going to actually follow the mandates, follow the policies, do the things that's going to be best suited to keep them safe? So I think the dangers in and of itself, we could talk about syringes or we could talk about the crack pipes. I think the dangers are inherent in just what they are, and that would speak for itself. Or just the environment and where we're going to encounter them. How we handle it is basically how we offset those dangers.
I have some data about the dangers. It occurs to me that this discussion has to deal with like the dangers to law enforcement, dangers to the officer doing the search, but there's dangers to the suspect also. I mean, I just recalled a case that I had where I was in a foot chase with a guy that when he fell, he had things in his pocket that broke and stuck and cut his leg. I'm not sure. I don't recall if it was a crack pipe or anything like that, but he did get hurt in the process of that chase. And I think that crack pipes would definitely be something that could break and injure the suspect. So you have to be aware of that. And then because of that, there's additional dangers that can go against the officer. I mean, if he's bleeding, that could come back on the officer. So I mean, you have to be aware when you're doing these searches of not only your safety and the safety of your fellow officers, but the safety of the suspect also.